Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. We agree that if we are against crime or criminal activity, we should denounce it, and we should punish that, and we have mechanisms of punishing uh, criminal acts, obviously conducted by people that will be called later criminals, regardless who the person is. If the person is one of my relatives or my friends or is not, that should not play any role in the punishment process or punishing process. So when the Russians, according to these guys, let's say attack and destroy civilian infrastructure and cause panic and terror, and you should call it as it is. But when the Ukrainians return the favor, it should be called the same way. Therefore, you are a just person. Okay, you close your eyes and you don't look at who's doing it, just the act. So when, for instance, the Russians they just attacked in Chernihiv and downtown Chernihiv, or Chernihiv by the Russians, they allegedly hit the center of the city with a missile. The Russians claim, no, we didn't hit it, we hit something else. Those guys said, okay, I'm not going to discuss that. Whomever did it, regardless, Ukrainians, Russians, whomever, that's a criminal act. That's a civilian infrastructure. Now, depends who hides in the civilian infrastructure as well, but that's a different story. Now, if Ukraine does the same thing to Russia, we should call it the same, correct? Correct. Because, as I said, we have mechanisms of punishing, not, someone does that against me, I don't like it, I'm going to do the same thing to you, and then I say, well, I did it because you did it. Yeah, but you didn't like that. So don't do to others what you don't like to be done to you. So, if it's negative, obviously. So here we have this article coming from CNN telling us that allegedly a Ukrainian drone hit a rail station in Russia, and it was not in the occupied territories. It was in Russia per se, in Kursk Oblast. Kursk is Russia. It's not Ukrainian territory that was grabbed by the Russians. So how should we call this act? Some people were injured over there. Well, if an act of this kind of magnitude or occurs and causes panic and terror, it should be called an act of panic, right? Yeah, okay. So you know exactly what I mean by this. So this is not an act of love and happiness. And if you try to justify it because the Russians committed a crime, according to you, all right, because right now I'm not convinced that these guys did it or those guys. It's just because these guys say it was them and the other guys say, no, it wasn't us. Well, that's why we have a certain kind of mechanism to find out who did it. And right now we don't have them in place because these guys are at war and there's no, investigation, impartial investigation to really find out who did it. Obviously, like condemn, the Russians did it. I don't think so. The Ukrainians did it. I don't think so. One of these guys was a third party. One of these guys, I can't say, well, those guys or these guys. I don't know. The same with Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2 pipelines. They said the Russians blew up their own pipelines. But if you turn the tables and say, how about maybe the Ukrainians did something as a false flag operation to blame the other guys? No. No. Why? Because the Ukrainians are good somehow and the Russians are bad somehow. All bad and all good. Okay, got that? So let's look at this little article here coming from CNN. Drone crashes into Russian railway station, leaving 5 injured. Not attacks, it just crashes. You see the term crash? Sometimes, we crash a car with no intention. Or sometimes, we just destroy it with intention. But here is drone, just crashes, okay? Just lands over there by mistake. We don't know who did it. There's some pictures here. And a Ukrainian drone, this is CNN saying that, crashed into the roof of a railway station in the western Russian city of Kursk early Sunday morning, injuring 5 people and causing damage to the building, according to the regional governor. Now, to be called an act of terrorism, you don't have to kill someone there. Okay, it's to create panic in order to change some political. That's what actually, if you look at the definition, it comes close to that. It doesn't have to be necessarily a to go all the way. So where is Kursk? So this is Ukraine right here. Kursk is right here. You see this oblast here, and then in the northeast, kind of. Kursk is far away from the border. So it's not on the border, it's not defending itself. Now, from my perspective, the Ukrainians have any right to hit military infrastructure and military bases. Everything is military in Russia because the Russians are doing the same thing. And this is war. And I'm not saying, how about that, a crime or a crime? No, this is war. It's different. Military versus military, not civilians versus civilians. Chernigov, Chernihiv, and Kursk. So you destroyed our civilians, we're going to destroy your civilians, but somehow we are good. No, that's not the way it works. So one of the station's platforms has been temporarily closed. However, passengers are still able to board and depart trains and two other platforms in the station. The roof and facade were also affected, and there was damage to a waiting room and pedestrian tunnel, he added. There's some more pictures from inside, collapsed garbage, whatever, debris. 5 people sustained minor injuries, he said, adding, at the time of the explosion, there were 50 passengers in the building. They were promptly evacuated. Out of 5 victims of shrapnel, 2 refused medical aid, 3 were sent to examination to Kursk Regional Hospital and have already been released home. And he says here, Kiev rarely takes the direct credits for such attacks, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said the war is gradually returning to Russian soil. Well, it doesn't mean it's civilians, but anyway. Russia, meanwhile, continues to regularly bombard Ukraine. A Russian missile hit a central square in the northern Ukrainian city of Chernihiv Saturday, killing 7 people and injuring more than 100. So, as I said, Chernihiv is right here, Chernihiv, and Kursk. Now, as I said, and I think you agree with me, if you stole something from me, I'm never going to steal something from you. I will report you, and we have authorities, impartial authorities. They're going to investigate, determine court procedures, and so on, and then we're going to distribute penalties and reparations, not those kinds of reparations. So here it is, my friends. I didn't hear Blinken coming out and condemning this attack, did you? Or France? I covered yesterday France lecturing Russia, the foreign minister of France, representing France, whatever, politically, right? She said that Russia is a coward and a cynical individual or entity for attacking Chernihiv. And if Russia did that, yes, that's true. That's not right whatsoever. But if you can see clearly that act as being as it is, then you're going to call this one as well. And you will also call the attacks on Moscow civilian infrastructure as well as cynical and an act of cowardice. No? No. Therefore, I can't subscribe to one side or the other when you have these guys that say they're all saints and they're the forces of all good, and the other ones are the opposite, total opposite. I would say like Baerbock, the foreign ministry of Germany, 360 degrees opposite, not 180, 360, okay? And I can't. When you do the same thing, I mean, a crime is a crime, you should acknowledge that, and you should punish it, and you should condemn it. Well, these guys are not. That tells me that you're not against the crime, you're against the person who does it. Or if he does it, it's a crime. If this does the same thing, it's not a crime. Well, when I'm going to hear the West, crying a little bit, the mass media crying about those Russian media people that were blown up by the Ukrainians, Daria Dugina and the guy, for instance, in St. Petersburg, remember that little cafe bar or whatever he was, blown up. When I'm going to see the media in the United States saying, hey, that's an attack on free speech, an attack on us, then I will again say, yeah, man, okay, oh, good, you have backbone. Until then, no, you're a bunch of weasels. The same when I'm gonna hear the chancelleries of, I don't know, Germany, Great Britain, France, United States, condemning attacks on civilian infrastructure and killing, for instance, those guys on the Kerch Bridge. Remember that family, those adults, and the 14 years old teenager child being injured. Remember when the Ukrainians attacked Kerch Bridge the last time? When I see them condemning that, then I will say, yeah, man, you're good. Until then, no, you're good and bad. You're good and bad. It's just the proportion between good and evil. So thank you very much for being with me again today. They attack critical infrastructure, civilian infrastructure, not critical, civilian infrastructure as well. I want to hear the condemnation. Or keep your mouth shut if the other guys are doing. No, they should be condemned. Whoever does it. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.